Hey friends, thanks so much for joining me. If this has ever happened to you and you weren't able to fix it, continue to watch this video because we are going to fix this and make it a usable extension cord right now. Alright friends, so in order to fix this cord and make it a usable extension cord again, you will need a couple things. One, you will need the cord, obviously. The next thing you're going to need is a plug. A plug like this that can be bought at your local hardware store for, well, this one was around $6, I believe. So instead of buying a new extension cord, you can save the one that you currently have if it's in a long enough section to save. Now, I probably wouldn't do it if I had a 2-foot section of cord, but you can choose to do what you want. So, you will need a plug, and make sure you grab the right plug. The other end of this one is the female, this is the male end. So, you need the plug, the cord, a screwdriver, and if you look on this, it has flat or a slotted head, and you could also use a number 3 Phillips, but these screws are flat or slotted, so I would use your slotted screwdriver for everything. Now the next thing you'll need is either wire strippers, or you can have a utility knife. If you have a utility knife, you have to be very careful with this not to cut yourself, but you can do it with a utility knife. And I'm going to show you how to do it that way, because most of us don't have an extra pair of wire strippers, electrician's pliers, just sitting around. We probably have a utility knife. So those are the things you'll need. Let's go and get started. All right, so we got our cord, we have our screwdriver, we have our plug that we're going to fix, and we have our utility knife. Now, little side note, this is a plastic coated cord. I don't like these that much because in the winter they get really hard and stiff and they're tough to wrap up, and once you wrap them up they'll keep that shape of the coil. So I like the more of the rubberized one, but that's just me, personal preference. You can do what you want. So with the utility knife we have to strip off this plastic, and it's always a good practice to cut away from yourself. That way if you slip, you're not cutting into yourself. I have done that many times the wrong way and ended up with stitches, so don't do that. So once you cut down, a little bit to split it, then you can cut around, and you don't really need to cut too deep into it. You just cut a little bit. You're cutting that plastic or rubber or whatever your cord is. Now this one's a more of a construction type cord, so it's got some pretty thick plastic on it. And then inside you'll see these pieces. They're almost like twine or burlap. You got to cut those, get those all out of there. So now we have to go and strip these wires. So the way I usually do that is to cut around, just kind of roll my knife around there. You can cut down like that. Then you have your exposed wires. So your cord should have 3 wires. It should have a white, a black, and a green, or it might have bare copper. That is your ground wire. That's the grounding wire. So you need 3 for this type of plug. You need 3 wires. If you didn't have 3 wires, if it only had 2, I might go ahead and just not fix that and just buy another cord, because that grounding wire is kind of important so you don't get electrically shocked, which is never a good time. So make sure you have black and white and green. If yours has 4, if it has a red as well, that's probably a 220 cord, which will take something different than this plug. So now we have our wires stripped. Now we need to take apart this plug, and it's pretty easy. You just take your flathead screwdriver and undo these 3 screws, loosen them up, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, and then you see the internals of this stuff. So now we have a pattern. You see where our holes are to accept the screws that will connect this together. You need to make sure you line that up properly. And we also have these 2 little tabs right here. They will sit right in this part. So it's got to go in a certain way in order to work properly. And it's important to be able to get that back together because you'll have wire and stuff in here. Now, here's an important step. Put your wires back together. Push the wires through here and then push them down. It gets kind of hard. And you want it to be a pretty snug fit because you want that holding on to the cord and you don't want added stress on these wires. So now we got that through. Now we're going to get these wires together so they're not all crazy like. No one wants a crazy wire. And then we put them in here. Now here's where you need to pay attention to the colors again. So whoever first invented this stuff loved the Hawkeyes. Okay, the Iowa Hawkeyes, because black always goes to gold and then white goes to silver. Black and gold, the Hawkeye colors. Remember that, folks. So your black goes to gold. Put your black wire in there. Tighten it up. Then your white wire goes in here. And sometimes I'll spread this so that it goes on either side of that screw in there. And sometimes I won't. It just depends on the wire and how it's behaving. Nice and tight. And now the green to green. Or if you had just a bare copper wire, it would go in here. And sometimes you need to back that screw up just a little bit more so your tab can come down. You want to make sure it goes in nice and smooth. Or not necessarily smooth, but goes in even to where it's not sticking out all crazy like. And they can be finicky. They can be a little bit hard to get in there at times. Okay, so now we got to look at how our holes are lined up. We have to twist this, bring this up here. Remember there's this spot of rubber notched out. That's where those grounding pieces go. Okay, now the cord's together. Now we have to make sure this rubber part gets back in there, because that protects the wire. And then we just fasten these down tight. And you want to do an even amount of pressure on both sides. You don't want one really tight and one really loose. That's what keeps that wire tight in there. Keeps this wire fastened on here. That way, if you pull on it, you're not pulling the actual wires that are attached to these prongs out. All right, there we go, folks. All done. We are ready to use it. All right, so there you go. Now you know how to fix an extension cord in case anything ever happens to your extension cord. You can fix it on the cheap instead of buying a new one. So remember, folks, make sure you work hard because hard work is its own reward. And thanks for watching.